NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play.
What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing you the latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, let's go. Let's dive right in. We've got a lot to talk about in this episode, so no dilly-dallying. Let's go. It's been about a week and a half since my last NetsBoy episode, in which the Nets, once again, went 5-1. So, pretty happy about that. However, it wasn't really the prettiest 5-1. We're not really going to talk about the one loss, the Utah Jazz game, because, no James Harden, no Kyrie Irving, no Blake Griffin, no Kevin Durant. And ultimately, I'm pretty sure, after the first 5 minutes, Steve Nash rested Joe Harris and DeAndre Jordan. So really, it was just who the hell else was out there? It was Tyler Johnson, Claxton, Jeff Green. That was it. There was not much else going on. So not going to really talk about that game. I mean, that was the most predictable loss ever. I'm pretty sure everyone knew the Nets were going to lose that game. And they did. They got blown out. It's whatever. But their 5 wins, though, were very interesting. The Trailblazers win was great. Hard-fought win. Great effort by the team, beating a very good team. And the Charlotte Hornets win was fantastic. The team solidified himself, came out guns a-blazing, playing great, knocking down tons of shots. LaMarcus Aldridge made his debut. We're going to touch upon that as well, obviously. Great win. But the 3 other wins against the Rockets, Timberwolves, and the Pistons, just frustrating. I mean, all 3 games. The Rockets game, not as much because the Nets pulled away at the end, but they were down by, 18 in that game, and then came back to end up winning by, 12. But the other games, the Timberwolves and the Pistons games, were just very frustrating because the Nets were up by, almost double digits with 2 minutes to go and almost blew both games, especially the Pistons game. And I'm just going to touch upon this right now. I'm going to try to not get too carried away with what I'm about to say because at the end of the day, the Nets did win. But they really shouldn't have. I talked about this in years and years ago in other NetsBoy episodes about something that I still don't fully understand. And that is why teams, when they're up by 1 or 2 with less than 24 seconds left in the game, so the shot clock is turned off, and when you know that the other team's goal is to try to be to either steal the ball or foul you, and they had just made a basket to make it a one-possession game, why do these teams call timeout? Why? I don't get it. Why do you need to call a timeout to advance the ball and write a play to inbounds the ball when all they're going to do is foul you? I mean, why do you need to write a play for that? It's called inbounds the ball. And, my 100th NetsBoy episode, I pretty much verbatim just said the same thing. When I did my 100th episode, I did the compilation. I talked about this before because years and years ago, the Nets lost a game because of this. The team made the shot, immediately a timeout, one-possession game. They couldn't inbound the ball, and they gave the ball to Patrick Patterson, who I think was the Raptors the Nets lost to. Stole the ball, Patrick Patterson dribbled, made a shot at the buzzer, and the Nets lost. And I'm just like, why did you have to call a timeout? Because what ended up happening was the inbounder couldn't get the ball in, but he didn't have any timeouts to call a timeout because they called a timeout to inbounds the ball prior, and so he had to force a pass, and the pass got stolen. Well, we saw the same thing in the Pistons game. Jeff Green couldn't figure out how to get the ball to Joe Harris. Call a timeout, Jeff. Oh, wait, you couldn't because you already burned a timeout before, not inbouncing the ball. And, okay, well, maybe you could have called a second. No, you couldn't because the play before, they called a timeout just to set it up to advance the ball to schedule to write a play. But why? After a made basket, Just grab the ball and throw it into the first guy you see that's open. You know they're going to just try to foul you. You know what's easier than inbouncing the ball and off a set play? Inbouncing the ball right after the shot is made. You want to know why? Because the defense is not set yet. They just were in their offensive set. They just made a basket. They're scrambling to get into defense position. That's the easiest time to inbounds the ball, when the defense is not set. Not let's call a timeout to write up a play to inbounds the ball. That allows the defense to get set. And you want to know what's also an easier thing than advancing the ball? Being able to run the baseline. Newsflash, after a made basket, you can run the baseline on the inbounds. So what's easier? Running the baseline to try to find someone to get open and inbounds the ball? Or calling a timeout to advance the ball to try to stand still and try to force a pass? It just doesn't make sense to me. And then once again, now you burn a timeout, a very much needed timeout, that, as we saw, Jeff Green couldn't call a timeout. He just forced a pass to Joe Harris. The ball got stolen. Pistons called a timeout. And thank God Nicholas Claxton is as good of a defensive player as he was and caused the tough layup and the clutching and the hesitation. Buzzer goes off, and the Nets held on to win. But it just should never gotten there. And I don't get it. I don't get it. They're just going to foul you. Just inbounds the damn ball. Why do we need to write a play? And by the way, what kind of play was that, Steve? Trying to just force the ball to Joe Harris? There was no movement at all. You couldn't have come up with a worse inbounds play with the defense already being set. Do something, some misdirection, some multiple options, not just trying, to fend off and get the ball to Joe Harris. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to drop it at that. I've always never understood it. I get why it happens. The idea is you want to run a set play to inbounds the ball, because you can run a play to make sure the guy gets the ball. But I've seen this fail so many times. Either 5-second counts or turnovers, or they get fouled and they make 1 out of 2, and then the other team hits a game-tying 3, and now you're out of timeouts with 2 seconds. You can't even advance the ball because you had just called a timeout before, so you have to take a half-court shot. I've seen every scenario where this happens. Timeouts are critical to hold on to at the end of games. It's just one of those things I just don't get. But, hey, that's one, so I should just drop it, right? Yeah, so I'll just drop it. But I just still don't get why it has to happen. To me, it's easier if they just inbounds the ball right after the main basket and run the baseline or do whatever. But who am I? Who am I? So anyway, Nets won those games. All of them were ugly, but hey, a win is a win. So obviously, there's other things to take away from these stretch of games. James Harden dealing with that little injury. He didn't play much he didn't play at all in the Hornets win, and he didn't play in the last quarter of the Rockets win. But Kyrie Irving just took over. And I want to touch upon this. I know James Harden's getting all the publicity, all the positivity for the Nets, getting the rumors of, an MVP candidate, this and that, and it's deserving. He deserves the recognition he's getting. But I don't think there's enough recognition going to Kyrie. I really don't. We all know I'm #on with Kyrie. He is the unsung hero of this season for the Nets. He really is. And I get it. He missed a lot of time in the beginning, personal reasons, just took time off again for family matters, all this stuff. But this guy is just as critical to the Nets' success as James Harden. This is the guy who truly made the sacrifice to say, I'm going to play off the ball. This is the guy who night in and night out gives the Nets 28 to 30 points a game. He shoots almost 50% from the field, over 40% from 3. This is the guy who took over in James Harden's absence in that Rockets game and propelled the Nets to that comeback victory. And James Harden was playing like crap in that game before he got hurt. Kyrie took the Nets to the next level. He is the guy that ran the team against the Hornets. This is the guy that has been a consistent offensive force for this Nets team. Yet, this is the guy that no one really is talking enough about. But I am. So as much as everyone's loving James Harden, which is deserving, I'm loving Kyrie. Because if you remove Kyrie from the equation, this team is not first in the Eastern Conference, which they are. They're lucky to be the 3 seed at this point without Kyrie Irving, because that's how important and critical he has been to this Nets team. And I just don't think he's getting enough love. But hashtag on with Kyrie. So love what I'm seeing from Kyrie. Love what I'm seeing from everyone on this Nets team. Joe Harris coming out of his little slump that he was in. Shamet came back to play well. Tyler Johnson's playing well. Jeff Green played well. Nicholas Claxton, fantastic like always. And now, the newest Net, as I touched upon before, LaMarcus Aldridge. Love it. I love LaMarcus Aldridge. He's always been one of my favorite players. I loved him back when he was with the Trailblazers. I have this soft spot for talented big men. I don't know if maybe it's because I'm so damn short. If you know, I'm one of the shortest people you're going to meet. I'm 5'3". Yes, I am 5'3". I know you can't tell because I'm always sitting down. But I'm unbelievably short, so maybe I have these big men, this big man love all the time because I, covet what they can do. So I love a skilled big man. I always have. That's why I love Brook Lopez. So LaMarcus Aldridge, I've always loved LaMarcus Aldridge for that same reason. Unbelievably skilled big man, can play inside out. This is just a great pickup by the Nets. Great pickup. And a shocking pickup. I, like everyone else, thought the Nets were going to get Andre Drummond. And I thought LaMarcus Aldridge was going to go to the Lakers because that just made the most sense to me. But what I think happened was, I think Sean Marks of the Nets heard through the grapevines that Andre Drummond preferred the Lakers. And the reason behind that is, unlike LaMarcus Aldridge, who's 35 years old, has been in the league for like 15 years now, and is truly, truly just worried about winning a championship, Andre Drummond is 27, and he's going to be a free agent. He still has an opportunity to get another big contract or two. I think Andre Drummond wanted to go to a situation where, yes, he could win, but also where he was going to play 30 to 35 minutes a game and still have a chance to put up 15 points and like 13 rebounds. And I think that really mattered to him because I think he wants to cash out and get a big contract over the offseason because, once again, he's 27. So I think when it's all said and done, it actually made a lot of sense. And I think Sean Marks and the Nets heard that and they said, you know what? Instead of going after Andre Drummond, let's go to the next best player in the buyout market, and that's LaMarcus Aldridge. And Aldridge just, it was one game. I don't want to make a lot out of one game, but we saw just how dynamic this Nets team can be with interior presence and post-game, inside-out play like player like LaMarcus Aldridge. It's just the reality of it. He was fantastic. So when it's all said and done, I'm not shocked. I actually think Drummond is out for is he out for the year or something? I heard he got hurt in his first game. I haven't read anything else on it. I just know he got hurt in his debut with the Lakers, like a toe injury or something. That'd be really upsetting for him if he's out for a long time, especially a tough blow to the Lakers. But whatever. But I love the Aldridge signing, and you know what? I think it's really gonna work, and I can't wait to see what it's gonna look like when this team is fully healthy. When they're playing inside out with Aldridge, with Durant, Kyrie, James Harden, and Joe Harris as the other players. What are you gonna do? So I'm super excited about that. But the one thing that really was great about this LaMarcus Aldridge signing is just the simple fact that this means less DeAndre Jordan. And, DeAndre Jordan didn't even play in the Hornets game. And there was an article that was released talking about how the Nets are going to gradually wean away from DeAndre Jordan. And I couldn't be happier. Look, DeAndre Jordan is not a terrible player. I still don't think he is. He has his value. I told you, he's a physical guy. He's a decent rebounder. He's a solid defensive player. But at this point, I've said it before, Claxton is much better. But yet we still saw Jordan getting, 15 minutes a game, which is fine. But now we saw in that Hornets game that not only did LaMarcus Aldridge play, he started and played 30 minutes. And then Nicholas Claxton played about 22 minutes. And that allowed the Nets to still go to their small ball lineup for 6 minutes with Jeff Green, who had a great game, which is fine. But it just worked. And I love it. I love Aldridge as the starting center, Claxton as the backup. I think it's a great fit. And you know what? If there's a situation where the Nets need some more strength, like they're playing, Joel Embiid and the 76ers, or Jokic and the Nuggets, or Sabonis with the Pacers, DeAndre Jordan absolutely should be playing then because he's a stronger physical guy. But regularly, he shouldn't be in the rotation. And I love that Steve Nash and the Nets have seen this, and they're moving away from him. Still has a lot value on the team. I'm not saying never play Jordan. I'm not saying don't keep, release him or anything like that. I'm just saying he should not be getting the bulk of the minutes. He should not really be in the rotation. He should just be a third-string center in case of injury or against more physical players. This should be LaMarcus Aldridge and Nicholas Claxton, and that's what I think we're going to see moving forward like we did in the Hornets game. So absolutely love it. I'm very curious to see who the Nets get with their last roster spot, because they still have one more roster spot open with the injury thing with Spencer Dinwiddie, which, by the way, I have a theory that the reason why Spencer Dinwiddie was not traded, I don't know if I touched upon this in my last episode or not. I either talked about it in my last episode or not, but I don't know. But the reason why Dinwiddie was not traded, because we heard all the rumors, was I think the Nets wanted to hold on to that, injury roster spot that they have. They could only sign another player if Dinwiddie stayed on the roster, since they had that injury exception. So I think that Sean Marks was like, you know what? Instead of trading Dinwiddie, let's keep him on the roster so we still have that extra roster spot with the injured player exception, so we can go out there and get another player. I think that's a big reason why Sean Marks didn't trade Dinwiddie. Plus, I think Sean Marks thinks that he could probably get more if Dinwiddie is healthy in a sign and trade, because we know Dinwiddie's going to opt out at the end of the year. He should. He's going to be a free agent. But maybe the Nets could do a sign and trade and probably get something more than what they were going to get for trading an injured Dinwiddie now. Who knows? But I think that's a real factor, because the Nets still have this one more roster spot. And maybe Alize Johnson is the answer. He's the guy that the Nets have given these 10-day contracts to, and I really like him a lot. I mean, he brings energy. He can score in a variety of ways. He's fun to watch. And maybe the Nets just give him the last roster spot. I'm okay with it. Personally, I think they need one more wing player, maybe another combo guard, a guy who can play the point guard or play, the two guard, on and off the ball, because it would be nice to have another player who can spell some minutes if James Harden is, missing some more time with an injury like he's dealing with, or they expect him to be back, or Kyrie needs a rest or something like that. It's nice to have another type of point guard out there and a guy who can play off the ball. And the guy that I came up with that just makes the most sense is Austin Rivers. I mean, he's available. He was, the Knicks traded him away. The Thunder let him go after the trade, and he's available, and he just makes the most sense. He can play on the ball, off the ball. He can shoot the three ball well. I mean, he's a decent defensive player. I mean, Austin Rivers just makes loads of sense. Plus, it'll stick it to the Knicks a little bit if he wins a championship, since, Knicks got rid of him. So that's who I would get with the last roster spot. But Alize Johnson, is that his name, Alize? I don't even know what the heck his name is. I like him a lot, too, and I'm okay with the Nets giving him the last roster spot because he's played well. But, there's a number of little players out there the Nets could go after with this final roster spot, but that's who I would get, Austin Rivers. So, that's just food for thought there. But it is curious to see what this final roster is going to be. We're almost there. We're almost there with this Nets team. And obviously Kevin Durant's still not back, dealing with a little off-the-court issues, but we're not going to really talk about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up because, you'll see it. But at the end of the day, Durant's supposed to be back in the next couple weeks. They don't expect anything serious with Harden's, hamstring quad injury that he missed some time with. Kyrie's here. Blake Griffin's looking sharp. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Blake with his energy and alley-oops and put-back dunks. Love it. There's just so much to get excited about, but we've almost seen this complete Nets team. I think in 2 weeks, we are going to see this fully healthy Nets team, and that is just super exciting. But I'm going to be honest. I have no idea what this rotation is going to look like. I have no idea who Steve Nash is going to go with. I mean, just think about it. I mean, maybe I won't talk about it that much. I'm not going to talk about it now because Kevin Durant's not back yet, but when Durant does come back and everyone's healthy, you really got to think about who's really going to play and who's not. I mean, there's only so many minutes to go around. So it's going to be very cool and interesting to see what happens. But as long as Claxton doesn't get his minutes cut, and as long as, you know, well, he's the only one who I think of who I like that the Nets might cut their minutes down because, you know, Aldridge I think is safe. I think Joe Harris's minutes are safe. Obviously Durant, Harden, Kyrie's minutes are safe. You know, as long as Claxton's minutes don't get cut too much, I'm all for whatever Steve Nash can figure out. But it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. Right, Nets dog? You're making noises. What? No. Oh, okay. Come on. No? Okay, fine. What? Come on. You're wasting time now. Do you want to be in the video or not? Okay. Yes, he does.
What up, Net fans? Nets dog here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm excited though about Woof Woof Aldridge and this Woof Woof Nets team looking great. I don't know anything else. I was just excited. I think I gotta go out. That's what I gotta do, NetsBoy. I gotta go out. You gotta put me out. Put me out. Okay, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. Okay. That is probably what he wants to do. That's why he came up to me. In a second. Give me 1 minute. We're gonna wrap this up. That is probably what he wants. This is basically around the time he normally goes out. So let's wrap up this episode. Next couple games for the Nets are the following. Bulls should be a win. Knicks should be a win. Pelicans should be a win. And then the Lakers with probably no LeBron James. We don't know. He might be back. But LeBron James, no Anthony Davis, should be a win. Timberwolves should be a win. The Nets should win every game until they get to the 76ers on April 14th. That is the game that I want to watch. I'm going to be pumped for that game. That's going to be a great game, and hopefully Durant is back by then. Embiid is supposed to be back soon, so that game is the game that I think is going to be super exciting. Overall, though, the next 4 or 5 games, I'm expecting the Nets to win all the games. I mean, let's be honest, this team should, especially if James Harden comes back. Now that they have LaMarcus Aldridge, the way this team is playing, they should win every game. But we'll see what happens. So anyway, wrapping up this episode, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think the Nets should go after in the buyout market left. You know, they got one more roster spot left. Let me know what you think about this Nets team, you know, the LaMarcus Aldridge signing, all this stuff. Keep your eyes open to the next keep your eyes open to the next NetsBoy episode. And until then, this is NetsBoy. Gonna go put Nets dog out before he goes in the house, which is bad. And signing off.